If you could stand on the muddy banks of the Chicago River in 1779, you wouldn't see the glittering skyscrapers of the Loop or hear the rumble of the L train overhead. Instead, you'd be standing in an endless prairie wilderness where wild onions grew so thick the air carried their pungent smell for miles. This place that the Miami and Potawatomi people called Chicago, the place of the wild onion, was nothing more than a strategic portage point between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River system. To the few fur traders who passed through it was a soggy, mosquito-infested stopping point. To the world, it would become the unstoppable engine of American expansion. In this video, I use modern AI tools to resurrect the sketches, photographs, and maps that chronicle Chicago's transformation from frontier outpost to America's second city. The goal isn't just to witness the history, but to smell the smoke of the Great Fire, feel the chaos of immigrant streets, and stand among the iron skeletons of the world's first skyscrapers. If you're ready to walk through the most dramatic urban transformation in human history, please like and subscribe so you don't miss our future journeys into America's lost cities. Before the Magnificent Mile existed, there was only tall grass and mud flats. In 1779, Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, a Haitian-born fur trader of African and French descent, built Chicago's first permanent trading post at the mouth of the river. The AI reconstruction shows the reality: a single log cabin surrounded by endless wetlands. By 1803, the United States built Fort Dearborn to assert control over this soggy outpost. In this watercolor painting, you can see the small wooden fort standing defiant on the south bank of the river. But the peace was fragile. During the War of 1812, the fort was evacuated and attacked in what became known as the Fort Dearborn Massacre. In this haunting illustration, you can see Potawatomi warriors overwhelming the retreating soldiers. The fort burned to the ground. Chicago ceased to exist. But like the phoenix that would later symbolize it, Chicago rose from the ashes. By 1833, the town was reincorporated with just 350 people. What transformed this swampy village into a city was a massive gamble: the Illinois and Michigan Canal. In this engineering drawing from 1836, you can see the ambitious plan to connect Lake Michigan to the Illinois River, creating a water highway from the Atlantic to the Gulf of Mexico. The AI reconstruction shows thousands of Irish laborers digging through clay and rock with hand tools, dying of cholera and accidents by the hundreds. When the canal opened in 1848, everything changed. In this lithograph from 1849, you can see grain warehouses sprouting along the river canal, boats loaded with wheat from Illinois prairies, lumber from Wisconsin forests stacked on every dock. Chicago had found its purpose. It was the great middleman, the place where the agricultural interior met the industrial east. But canals were already obsolete. The future arrived on iron rails. By 1856, Chicago was the hub of 10 different railroad lines, more than any city in America. The AI reconstruction reveals the explosion that followed. Standing at the intersection of State and Madison in 1860, you'd be surrounded by chaos. The clatter of trains arriving every few minutes, immigrant families pouring off with trunks and children, grain elevators rising like fortresses along the river, and the relentless hammering of new construction echoing from every direction. By 1870, Chicago was a city of 300,000, 100 times larger than it had been just 40 years earlier. In this sweeping photograph of downtown from 1870, you can see block after block of buildings, most of them hastily constructed from pine lumber shipped in from Wisconsin and Michigan. German breweries, Irish saloons, Polish markets. The city was a patchwork of immigrant communities. The wooden sidewalks raised above streets that turned to impassable mud every spring. You'd smell the stockyards to the south, hear the constant whistle of trains, and see a city that believed it was invincible. The city was a tinderbox. They were wrong. In this terrifying engraving of the Great Chicago Fire, you can see the apocalypse that began on October 8, 1871. Legend blames Mrs. O'Leary's cow, but the real culprit was a city built almost entirely of wood after a summer of drought. Fueled by strong southwest winds, the fire consumed the heart of Chicago in less than 2 days. The AI reconstruction shows the horror. Walls of flame 100 feet high racing through wooden buildings like they were paper. Standing on the shore of Lake Michigan, you'd see thousands of refugees fleeing with whatever they could carry, jumping into the water to escape the heat. The fire destroyed over 17,000 buildings and left 100,000 people homeless, a third of the city's population. In this photograph taken days after the fire, you can see the utter devastation. Block after block of rubble and ash with only a few brick walls and iron facades still standing. The entire central business district was gone. 4 square miles of the city had been erased. But where others saw catastrophe, Chicago saw opportunity. Within days of the fire, businessmen were already making plans. In this newspaper illustration from October 1871, you can see the defiant headline, "Chicago shall rise again." And rise, it did with a speed that shocked the world. The Reconstruction had one crucial difference. This time they built with brickstone iron and eventually steel. In this architectural rendering from 1873, you can see the new building codes requiring fireproof construction. But more importantly, Chicago's architects began to innovate. The city's swampy soil couldn't support traditional masonry buildings above a certain height. So engineers developed new foundation techniques, floating rafts of concrete and steel that could distribute weight across the soft clay. In this technical drawing from 1884, you can see the revolutionary design for William LeBaron Jenney's home insurance building, the world's first true skyscraper using a steel frame skeleton rather than load-bearing walls. The AI takes us to street level in 1885. Looking up at the 10-story home insurance building, you'd see a structure that seemed to defy gravity and common sense. Passers-by would literally stop and stare. This was architecture, as engineering function driving formed the birth of the Chicago School. Walking down State Street in 1885, you'd be surrounded by a city rebuilding itself in real time. The screech of rivets being hammered into steel beams, the rumble of wagons delivering materials, the geometric shadows of iron skeletons rising against the sky. Chicago wasn't just rebuilding, it was inventing the modern city. In this panoramic photograph from 1890, you can see a skyline that didn't exist anywhere else on Earth, a forest of steel rising from the prairie. Sometimes when I look at these restored images of early Chicago, I'm struck by how much was sacrificed for this speed. Native peoples displaced workers, exploited neighborhoods, burned and rebuilt the environment bent to human will through sheer force. Yet they built something unprecedented, a city that rose from nothing to become the nerve center of a continent in just over a century. This swamp became a metropolis. This is the Chicago story. Thank you for joining me on this journey from prairie to powerhouse. Your engagement helps me choose which city to resurrect next. Let me know in the comments which urban transformation you want to experience. Until next time, keep looking back to understand how we got here.